This is just a quick video to prove that BleemSync on version 4.1 currently can load the entire library. I prepared 1,509 titles to proper format with BleemSync 4.1. This is my setup here. I have a classic connected to, inside here is a stock hard drive for my PS4 Pro. It's a 1 terabyte drive. As you can see, I have a Y cable looped off to my hub, so that's supplying power, since it's known that this can hardly even supply enough power to most jump drives, much less a hard drive like that. But I found that this actually works really, really well, better than some of my little flash drives that I've tried. But yeah, I have the entire PS4 or PS1 library on here currently. So in order to do this, initially I had images that were much larger than recommended, which is 226 by 226 pixels. That's what the stock OS uses to load. I was using whatever my default packet from Hyperspin had, which was 456 by 400, I believe, which elevated the size of the files greatly. And from what I understand, when this loads, even though it has a gig of built-in memory, only a fraction of that is reserved for the system, which does such things as load the UI, the wheel for the game selection, and so forth. I have calculated that as an assumption to be approximately 100 meg in size. Just doing some quick, really ugly and rough math based off of what I was trying to load and when it was crashing. I was only able to get up to 300 titles loaded, but that was with my 456 by 400 images. So I did a little quick math, figured out that if I reduce the image size down to 50 pixels by 50 pixels, which naturally it's not going to be very fancy, but all of that gets loaded into the UI, so you want to reduce the size of the images as much as possible to pull away from how much content you're loading into the UI. So when I did an initial load, it stayed on the black screen, and from what I tell, it reads the hard drive for however long to cache your file contents. That stayed on that screen for about 3 minutes. Once that was completed, it goes to the blue screen health and safety warning, where it stayed on that screen for 2 minutes and 6 seconds, and that's where it's actively scanning the drive database and loading in the images and caching the images into the wheel. And here's the result. I know it's ugly, but this is just to prove that it can be done. There is no limit on how many games you can load, obviously. It's just down to the content size, how much you can load into memory to cache these images. So as you can see, we got 1,506 titles in here. I mean, naturally we're waiting until we get folder support to have this a little more functional, but this is proving that it's possible. And to get to a title toward the end of the alphabet, you can see would just be excruciating, but everything is loaded. This is the entire PlayStation library on here, including a lot of demos and Lightspan and so forth. This is everything in the library of the US library, and a lot of other things in addition to that. So as you can see, this is proof to show this 1 terabyte drive connected to the PlayStation Classic, BleemSync 4.1. It is possible. And it's just chugging away, going really, really slow. Normally if you have less titles on the screen, it goes quicker, but think about how many titles it's rotating on this large UI wheel. It slows down the title selection quite a bit. So let's say I want to, let's load a game here, see if it even works. I'll do something that's somewhat interesting here. How about a Kingsfield game? Let's see if this even loads. Looks like it might load, believe it or not. And it loads. That's kind of crazy. Look at that, it works. So the next test is, when I had 300 titles loaded, it would work with the stock images, but the rest of the UI, such as doing things like save states, reserves another chunk of the UI memory. So the question is that going to work? I hit reset, and this is where it would normally crash. And so far it's not looking too good. It's trying to do the save state. Did it freeze? And give it a moment here to see if it captures that save state. From what I had discovered though, seems like it uses about 25 meg of that reserved 100 meg in memory to process those save states. And we just, well, it didn't power off yet. We got a black screen. Yeah, and it powered off. So anyways, it looks like the system UI is a little bit crowded with that, understandably, but that is a good proof of concept to show that, to understand the UI a little better, it can actually cache that if you reduce the image size down. I attempted this with 100 by 100, it crashed. I tried it with 75 by 75, it crashed, but I finally got it to load the wheel with 50 by 50, which reduced the image size greatly. So hope this is helpful.